I was jumping the gun a bit. We hadn't got through to the semi-final. We got through to the Western Area Qualifier Southern Division, which is the quarter-final, effectively. And that happened at Shaftesbury, where the Hovis advert was made. The Hovis advert down a big hill. So we'd been to Shaftesbury before when we did Graham. Tiny, lovely little theatre. And they used to do gorgeous cakes upstairs, which reminded me of my mum and dad. And the other thing I vividly remember, knowing that we were really well prepared. Oh, and also at Shaftesbury, the theatre was so small, we couldn't take any of the multimedia. So we had to do it without multimedia, and that was a huge decision. Oh, wow. And we'd also had problems setting it up problems setting it up in Totton in the time limit. So we decided we'd go without it. And that was a massive, massive risk. Whether the play would stand up on its own without that huge input. But the other thing I clearly remember from this was you and Matt outside just going off and rehearsing, I think, on their own. So what did you two get up to at those times?
Oh, we would always be just playing on the physical-y, dancey type stuff. We would be doing that anyway in our own time. And then when we had this as a wonderful little outlet, it was perfect. And before every show, we always wanted to put something new in. Kind of once we're warming up, we'd be warming up a little bit, doing some dancing, and then we'd be like, oh, there's a point here where we could add something, or maybe let's just, even very simple things like a look or something, we can just quickly choreograph tiny little things that make real big differences. And so we kind of worked out that we just have to spend a little bit of time together, decide a couple of things, and then we can make real big, exciting changes throughout the show, or additions throughout the show.
And is that something throughout your working life that has carried on being part of who you are, or is that just a unique thing to this period?
I definitely think I'd take that with me. And in every show, we're always, in our company, we're always trying to add a new little trick or changing something. You know, what was really cool about this show is that because we did it so much, we got...
That was a real honour, actually, wasn't it?
We got the constant feedback from the audience, which we haven't, I guess, had as much. In Graham, that was the first time that we played more than just one show. So
yeah, it
was really fun to have that constant... knowledge from the audience. Oh, okay, that worked. So tomorrow, when we're doing the show again, we can change that for them. And
I think that Dan Nolan experience for me was really important. So where we'd got to the point where we've done it, we're ready, and we can go and do it. With this, I was saying we're never ready. We must keep trying to improve it, and I think maybe that is part of that atmosphere that thought grew out of. I don't know.
Yeah, there's always better things to. There's probably always better things you can add. You know?
So given that in the quarter-final we were the underdogs very much because we kind of got through, but we hadn't deserved it. And so we were on first in the afternoon, I can remember that, and that's the worst slot. And then there's two other performances, and then there's an evening break, and then and there's football in the afternoon. So so no one comes in to watch it. They're all in the pub. And then in the evening, you've got a big audience and the two winners from the festival perform. So the review we got was incredibly hopeful. And this is where I remember Kate Bulpit appearing. And she'd been at the premiere with us. And she said she drove the minibus, that's all she did. And I can remember her saying, I want to be involved in this. I want to get you funds because you shouldn't be skimpering around trying to just... We need to have this properly fundraised, and my God, thanks to her that we did do that, because things that happened later we couldn't have done without the input, the professional input of Kate, and that was just exceptional, absolutely exceptional. And at Oaklands, I don't think that would have happened in the same way. And Ian Golding, the head teacher, came to every performance. I mean, the support was unbelievable, just unbelievable. And it was great for him because he and me would sit and listen to the review. I'm going to read you little extracts from the review. And again, I don't think Charlie's heard this for a while. So this is Mike Kaiser, who had a lovely, humorous way of delivering these things. The cast were already on stage, heaped across each other as the audience entered. Others were stacked at the rear of the stage on specially constructed skeletal framework of shelves and boxes. They were all in 5 white boxes with the hand symbol for STOP painted across them, and these were used throughout in different positions as they glided easily on casters. The costumes were a basic grey trouser with a black top, also containing the STOP image on the front and various lines of testimony on the back, of which more later. The 2 predators were a strong contrast with red tops on, and again that decision by Kat was such a key thing to highlight you throughout. People who had individual roles later then added normal clothes with brighter colours. The whole was well thought out and consistent, and on a practical level suitable for leaping and rolling about. The almost constant soundtrack, this is Dave Jones, again adult input in a way that I'd never had before in this manner. The almost constant soundtrack of original music was a superb addition to the piece, not just for the mood but also for the effects such as the ticking clock. That was, I can remember when we were doing the getting towards the million numbers. As with the lighting, it was subtly handed. One of the most remarkable features of this production in general was the way in which sound enhanced key moments with split-second timing, which can only have been done, I assume, by the cast, listening carefully and timing themselves in an almost constant background. Well done indeed to all concerned, on and off stage. Do you remember that?
I remember that, and we were very lucky to have quite a few dancers in the company, so that, and especially if me and Matt were leading some of the bits of kind of creative vocabulary, it was, I guess, in a bit of a dance way, it would be timed, and we would listen to the music a lot, and in dances just constantly repeating. And so that everyone was very much up for getting involved in that, and we
You say everyone?
hard.
Everyone apart from me, because I have 0 dance background. So I very much, and I think this goes back to the David Bowie and not micromanaging. Very much, I handed it to them, and I then got the credit, and it was quite embarrassing getting the credit as director, because my role was basically to enable this to happen. And to say, yeah, that works really well, or no, that doesn't, and maybe we should change it. So the directing was done by the cast from within, not from me, and I was just super grateful to get all the credit from it. There was a genuine sense of fear and chaos, and yet voices projected over all the movement and mayhem. And just me saying that, it isn't me being modest, that is genuinely how it was, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, good. The physical choreography was extremely well coordinated, not only to the movements of everybody else on stage, but also to the exact demands of the musical effects. There were times when a universal shout would be launched in split-second unison. The quality of the movement was of a high order, crouching, slithering, whirling across on all fours, shinning up the scaffolding and leaping off it. It really did at times give the impression of a pack of animals, or at least of a rawness of energy mixed with evil. And I think that's just a one. I said to Charlie before, some of these comments, I can't believe why we haven't used it on the publicity for Stop the Traffic script, because it's so vivid, isn't it? Visceral. They're constantly stepping out of character to remind the audience, we should like to take this chance of telling you that Phil is a real person. Really important to me that we would do that. Very Brechtian, but that was super important to remind the audience that this was real. It wasn't about us, it was about the situation. At times it felt like an animated lecture which has to be enlivened and coloured. The wearing of the T-shirts in the auditorium later, this is a really interesting point. The wearing of the T-shirts in the auditorium later with many different messages seemed justifiable, and that's the first time I've ever said that. Really nice.
That was a decision of...
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember, let's keep our costume on.
It goes outside. It's a message not just for on stage. There was a sense of achievement as the number of signatures grew, and the impact of the final group tableau with a semicircle behind the named characters, the harsh bright lighting, and the raising of the hands, all built to a terrific climax. And I'm so pleased that the office scenes are recognised, because I think when I think about Stop the Traffic, I think about the movement scenes. It's lovely that's recognised. Those scenes are equally as important, and they offered almost like the funny man to the straight man, but they just offered something different. Veronica, Becky Wiltshire and Kiri, Lauren Oakley, both had the vulnerability of children. They cried out with fear. Both responded to the challenge of coming in at the beginning of the drama at such a high level. Great emotion, terrible things happening to them, beyond the experience of most of us.
I remember some of the scenes. I mean, we did the scenes with Becky, who was playing Veronica, but I remember the scene with Lauren and her and Caden.
A rape scene.
Yeah, and I remember
brutal rape.
Us watching the first kind of rehearsal that they had done themselves just then too, and we all were just silent. It was so. For me, it was a bit crazy because it was like, whoa, Caden and Lauren, you've just been practicing this, in a room. What? That's so. And
it was daring, wasn't it?
Yeah, for them to have that maturity to be able to practice that together without anybody, and then perform it in front of us, it was really cool. And I think that we would just kind of jimmy each other up, give each other the confidence and show a bit more vulnerability, and then we'd cover that. And so it was such a teamwork. And me seeing the maturity of that cast made me, okay, yes, we need to do this, and this is my role. Yeah.
And how old were you at this point? 17?
No. Yeah, 16,
2010?
17? Yeah.
16. So year 11.
Like yeah.
Right. Gemma Ackhead Priestley captured some of the anguish of a parent at not protecting her own child in a well-controlled, longer speeches. And Gemma did a beautiful, beautiful performance. Alex Chalk, again, is mentioned, who'd won the award, was one of the first of the normal characters to emerge. He did so with great confidence and control of phrasing and pausing. Such important things here for drama students to think about. Phrasing and pausing was Alex's forte. I don't think he had a weakness, but they were just fantastic. He had an excellent quality voice and was not afraid to hold a pause for significant meaning. He was skilled at changing volume and pace, very, very important, and very natural in communicating with the audience. Erin, Catherine Wiltshire, this is in the 1 million scenes. I like the characterisation of someone who was keen and eager, dedicated to the project, but possibly a little bit slow on the uptake at times. It was a lovely contrast with Alex, played by Kylie. She was more energetic and pleading, very earnest, for example, in asking for the support at the Glastonbury Festival. There was a lovely naturalistic chuckle at the absurdity of the idea of 1 million signatures. Predators, Matt Savage and Charlie Wheeler. I cannot speak too highly of the impact of these two acting as a pair. They were like hyenas in their terrific movement, crouching, twisting, slithering, scuttling off, but always coming back. Their physicality and the guttural quality of their voices at times was truly threatening. The dynamic energy involved hip-hop type double-jointed twists and at times perfectly synchronised leaps from the scaffolding. These two were responsible for the palpable feelings of evil throughout, delivered in a highly visual and audible way. The danger might have been for it to become self-indulgent in excess, but I felt it was admirably controlled.
Wow.
It's just wonderful, isn't it? Yeah. And then the conclusion.
It's funny he talks about the audio as well.
Yes.
Considering that we were dancing and that. Matt was a very... he's a big Michael Jackson fan, and so he uses his voice when he talks about movement. And so everything was always, if we were doing these, it was...
Yes.
And he was such a... That was his language he spoke, and so that was very fun to put on stage.
And you adopted that?
Yeah.
Here we had an excellent... So this is the conclusion. We had an excellent example of a play which not only shows the power of physical theatre at its best, but also challenges the audience in its ideas. There is no subtle mingling of an implied message. In fact, it goes out of its way to remind you constantly of the purpose of the piece, not only for the 50 minutes which has just passed, but ideally by raising your participation levels for good. None of this work would work if it weren't for the seamless fluency of the performance in which the actors, set, lighting and sound all combined to give us a high-octane, exhilarating, disciplined production which swept us through the individual stories. I suggested it needed to be irresistible, and so it was. Many thanks, Mike Kaiser, Skoda. And he gave us 86%, and we ended up winning that festival against all the people who did deserve to be at the quarter-final. And this time we actually were through to the semi-final for the second production that we'd entered in a row, which, after having never got through, seemed almost unbelievable.